Hey folks, Jim Dunaway from The Next Round. It's time to look back and enjoy a week of Southeastern Conference football as we talk about what we saw in the field. And as always, we're excited to be partnered with our friends at Cowin Equipment. And they'd like to partner up with your company for all your heavy equipment needs. Visit everyone over at Cowin on their website at cowin.com to find out more about how you can save with your heavy equipment solution, from rental and new equipment sales to superior service and parts. It's all right there with our friends at Cowin Equipment. Visit cowin.com. That's cowin.com. Now let's check out the action.
Let's start with the loss, late night, Saturday night, Happy Valley, where Auburn had some really good positive things to come out of that. One of those, just the fight of the team in a tough environment. But in the end, you come up short. And for me, there were two just big highlight points. One, the little trickeration play that
not needed,
that fans always question if it doesn't work. They love if it works. And then the fourth down play call at the end. Those are the two things that jump out quickly for me. Give me your thoughts each on Auburn, Penn State.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you got to give Brian Harsin a C for coaching, because I agree with you, the trickeration to start the second half. You know, Auburn right there sitting down 14-10. Should have been 21-10. An absolute easy drop pick six going into half. So Auburn was fortunate to get that break and to come out just an unforced error there, to not go for it on 4th and 1 where they kick an easy field goal for Carlson.
I had no problem with that. You didn't like that?
I think I would have gone for it.
Well, the only thing is, even kicking the field goal, you still kept it a one-possession game, even if Penn State drove down and scored, which is what they did.
So, look, I mean, that's just me. That's nitpicking right there, because, look, he did convert the field goal. It was a one-possession game, so you could go either way. I just thought the way the Auburn was running the football, whether it was Bigsby or Hunter, I think they probably picked that up.
Yeah. I didn't have a problem with the field goal. Didn't like the trickeration, but again, if Kobe throws it and it's a backdoor touchdown that goes 75 yards, everybody, look at the coaching.
But especially, you got to understand your audience here now. Especially Auburn fans are not going to like that, because it felt very Gus Malzahn.
It did.
And I think any other fan base that does it, when it doesn't work, they're going to question it. You're going to say, because it's exactly what I said. What an odd time to run that play. It felt like you hadn't set it up really, that you're not even in the part of the field where you normally run that kind of play. You're normally closer to midfield when you do something like that. You're coming right out of the locker room.
But back to the other questionable one, the fade on the 4th and 2, just a low probability on that play altogether. Even if you've got Aaron Rodgers throwing to Devontae Adams, I don't know if that's the best play call in that situation. And again, we talked about it all week. The best player on the field is Tank Bigsby, although I will say Jarquez Hunter is –
he's closing ground.
I mean, he really is. I mean, whenever he's got the ball in hand, he looks just as good as Tank. But those are the guys behind that offensive line. That's the play you want to run, I think, if you're an Auburn fan.
Now, everyone reacting to Alabama's win, and 17 in a row. I always have to remind people that they won the football game down in the swamp against Florida, against the number 11 team in the country. And Florida holds their spot at number 11. Alabama did not lose a single vote in the AP poll. Still got 59 first-place votes. I feel like the nation respected that 31-29 win a little bit more maybe than some fans here locally. You labeled this the annual Pete Golding show, Brown.
I think I know our audience. I think we'll get some Pete Golding hate on this one, because they had no answer for the Florida run. And if you had a more proficient throwing quarterback than what Emory Jones is, you'd have been in a lot more trouble than you were.
Well, if you don't have a missed extra point, who knows what happens?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Who knows what happens, because Florida doesn't have to go for 2 and they can tie the game. I would say Florida had no answer for Alabama's offense at that point either. So I kind of like Alabama's chances of getting back down and scoring late and winning that game. But if you had a better throwing quarterback in a Florida uniform than Emory Jones, that game is even more interesting than it already was. And I think that's what has Alabama fans concerned.
No, I understand what you're saying there. The quarterback being able to run, though, if it was a traditional, I like Alabama's defense better against a team that's not going to run the ball like they do.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying he's still running the football, but if he could throw it as well as he could run it.
If that's Matt Corral playing for Florida on Saturday, Alabama loses that game.
They could lose that football game.
By the way, 2 weeks from now. In the chat room, here we go, Brown. TJ, leave Pete Golding in the swamp, not the stadium, the actual Everglades.
Find a swamp somewhere.
Blake says, if Bryce Young would take off and run the ball on some of these crucial downs, I believe the score wouldn't have been that close. He agrees with you on that. I got a Cowin equipment poll question out for you guys, and we'll get Brownie's worst of the weekend and LT's best and worst mine as we move throughout the hour in the show. Your Cowin equipment poll question today involves Alabama's future schedule. The toughest opponent now after watching Alabama beat Florida in the Swamp 31-29. The most difficult game left on Alabama's schedule. Is it at Texas A&M? Is it at Auburn? Is it home to Ole Miss or other? You can go vote right now at Next Round Live. It's brought to you by Cowin Equipment. This Ole Miss team looks to be playoff worthy to me right now. How close do you think Ole Miss is to being playoff worthy? Against Tulane, who we saw them against Oklahoma, 372 rushing, 335 passing, and they called the dogs off midway through the third. They could have scored 80.
Yeah, look, this offense, it's going to be really interesting to see what they're able to do in 2 weeks coming off this bye in Bryant-Denny against Alabama. I assume that game will be 2:30.
No announcement yet, but I don't know how else you would do it. You have two undefeated teams.
So 2:30 for Ole Miss, 7 o'clock prime time for the Texas A&M game if you're planning ahead.
Matt Corral's completing almost 70% of his passes. He has yet to throw a pick. Again, as you said, the competition is very questionable. But Matt Corral's also a quarterback, and you saw Emory Jones give Alabama a lot of problems running the football. Matt Corral can run the football. He's averaging 5 yards a carry with 5 touchdowns on the ground already. Jerrion Ely, Snoop Connor, multiple guys that can run the football. You look at the receivers with Mingo and Drummond. I mean, offensively, they've got all of the weapons to match up with Alabama. It just comes down to, week one, we saw them against Louisville. The defense in that first half looked much improved from 2020 to 2021. But how improved is it? That's the question mark.
I don't want it to go past what you just said. He and Bryce Young are tied for the Heisman favorites at Caesars right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Matt Corral is playing some really good football. I just got to see it before I'll believe it.
Yeah, there's nobody else you can put in that mix, though.
Yeah, they haven't played anybody, Dunaway. To your question, do I consider Ole Miss a national championship contender? No, I don't. Not yet. Louisville is not a good football team. Austin Peay is Austin Peay. Tulane is Tulane. Go into Bryant-Denny and do it, and I'll believe it.
I will tell you, this number has changed for me. I would have listed this before this past weekend at Alabama 17.5. I think
12.
I think it'll be 13.
13?
Which would be less than it was when Alabama was at the Swamp this weekend.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah. They're number 13 in the country, Brown. How high up do you have to be before you start considering them a national champion or playoff contender?
No, it's not how high they have to be. It's beating Alabama. Okay. Wherever they go after they beat Alabama, that's where they'll have to be before I consider them a playoff contender. I can't consider the Ole Miss. Now, listen, we're talking brands here, Jim. And Ole Miss is not a national championship brand. I cannot consider them based on wins over Louisville, Austin Peay, and Tulane. I got to see something else.
Yeah, and I'm still look. Lane Kiffin has. He's just a coach that's never won a championship. He's had a lot of opportunities. So Lane Kiffin, the defense was horrendous last year. Brown mentioned the brand. They've never even been to Atlanta to play for an SEC championship game. They've got a long way to go. But if they beat Alabama,
new ball game then.
I'm the guy that controls the entire program, but I have to keep Pete Golding around for, what is this, his 4th year?
Yeah.
The guy controls everything to do with the city of Tuscaloosa. I think he's got more power than Walt Maddox, but he controls absolutely everything with the program. If he didn't want Pete Golding on the staff, he wouldn't have been back this year.
You want me to answer it? Ask me. I'll tell you. I'll do if they want that. I'll give you what Nick Saban would do. Yes.
Obviously, the defense struggled.
I can't hear him, Josh. I can't hear him. Are they going to talk in this thing the whole year?
Sorry. Coach Saban, obviously the defense struggled, especially the final 3 quarters in Gainesville this past weekend. Pete Golding, there were some questions, fans buzzing about, how ineffective his defense was last year in spots, and, it didn't look good Saturday. What are your thoughts on Pete Golding, your defensive coordinator right now?
You did the shoulders?
He does that a lot if you notice it. Then you go, I think Pete's a bright guy, and he's a good football coach. Pete does a lot of good things, and the players love him, and they play for him. You guys, you see what you think you see, right? You see what you think you see. You just tell me why he did bad. What did you see?
Well, I saw him gashing your ass on Saturday.